welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, LuckyEevee, Mathmachine, Stryker, and Jordan. Today is our 40th episode, and we're discussing 2014's Tom and Jerry, The Lost Dragon. So, let's get things started. So, everyone pretty much knows Tom and Jerry, the classic, cat and mouse duo who inspired, a dozen other similar cartoons with, small pests, annoying, big predatory creatures and that.
Yeah, my family currently owns a box set of like some of the early seasons, as in like the early seasons, and even has a little picture from one of the first episodes, which, yes.
Nice. But yeah, like I said, basically they continued doing it for years with some success, some not. This movie comes from the era of Tom and Jerry where they mostly did, and apparently still do, direct-to-video movies. Some of them are decent, others are terrible. The one that most people are familiar with, because it became a meme a couple of years ago, was Tom and Jerry and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which was a desperate attempt for Warner Bros. To keep the rights to the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory franchise, which failed miserably as it went to Netflix, hence the prequel. And sadly, this did not lead to Tom and Jerry crossing over with other Warner Brother movies. We could have had Tom and Jerry in Casablanca, Tom and Jerry in All Quiet on the Western Front, Tom and Jerry in Goodfellas. That would have been really funny.
Tom and Jerry and Godzilla, maybe?
Yeah. Warner Brothers distributed them too.
Tom and Jerry meets Batman.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't done that one actually. I was like they haven't done that one yet.
Tom and Jerry and Jerry and the Green Lantern.
That would be interesting. That would legit be interesting, but yeah.
I feel like they do sewer pets though.
Yeah, probably would. It would work. But yeah, getting back to this one, Tom and Jerry and the Lost Dragon. This movie is a pretty fun one in my opinion, and is probably one of the better ones. Now, the animation of this movie, right off the bat, it's pretty much what you expect for a direct-to-video effort. This is not, sadly, Bartok the Magnificent level animation quality, although it does share similarities with that movie. More on that later. One thing that slightly bothers me about this movie, I don't know if it's something with the outlines of the characters or whatnot, they seem to be just placed on top of the background, rather than being actually within the movie itself.
Kind of, yeah. I noticed that as well.
Yeah, it feels like they're just like cells on like a sheet of paper. They don't feel
just like real animation.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like I say like they're actually part of the world that they exist in. But that is one thing that is kind of a shame. Aside from like Tom and Jerry, like for example, like the elf characters and Drizelda and Athena, they just seem so out of place, especially in this sequence. And, of course, the movie begins with an elderly wizard who is voiced by the great Jim Cummings, who has done pretty much every single animated project for the past, 30 years or so, 30, 40 years, and he's fantastic.
Indeed.
Yep.
Yeah.
He banishes Drizelda the witch for using dark magic on the kingdom. The kingdom is populated by these little blue elvish people, and between their skin color and the weird mushroom houses, I was reminded very much of the Smurfs. So wonder if they were taking stuff from that as well.
I hear this and I think Zadia, which similar premise, but
yeah. But yeah, Drizelda has a very unique design. Her green skin, it does remind me of Maleficent in particular. The red dress actually is a really good contrast to it. And the black hair with the white stripe in it, a little detail like that just gives a character that otherwise would be like a stark archetype, really just a lot of character.
Indeed.
They also have a neat way of animating her in that basically every pose, every frame, everything of her is a smear frame.
Yeah, and we'll get to see more about that later, and things she does too, which is in part one of the reason why she is very reminiscent of Ludmilla. But she's accompanied by 4 cats, the smallest of which is a kitten version of Tom, who looks kind of cute. Let's be real. But also the joke with one of the elf women complaining about Drizelda insulting her hat, and then the wizard just awkwardly puts that into the list of crimes is a pretty funny joke. But now we get to
it was.
Yeah. Like I said, this movie it's not perfect. It's probably not even, good,
perfect,
but it has good
still
moments. It has fun moments and it has good moments. But also, now we get to something that's interesting. Drizelda is voiced by Vicki Lewis, who's probably best known for being Deb in Finding Nemo, the fish who thought the reflection was her sister. She also was in Godzilla 1998 as Elsie, the archaeologist who briefly works with Nick before he's kicked off the project. That means that this actress has appeared in 2 podcast episodes in a row. The odds of that must be like 1,000,000 to 1 that happened. And that's the main villain and dragoness in this movie, which, we'll get to later.
Back for like what happened in 98 or something.
Yeah, it's just
I is strong with this one.
Also, keeping with the Godzilla 98, she seems just as horny in that as she is in this.
Very true, very true. And again, we will get to more of that because, believe me, they go all out with this. There is a particular moment later on that actually made my jaw drop a little bit. But it turns out that
same, because I'm actually surprised they allowed this in a kids movie.
Yeah.
More on that later.
Yeah,
more on that later.
Yep. So the wizard basically taught Drizelda how to use her powers, but of course she used them for evil. And Drizelda's niece Athena is allowed to stay in the kingdom. Drizelda basically pulls out a vial and threatens to use it on the villagers, but the wizard zaps her, causing her to drop the vial. It turns the other 3 cats into like ogre beings. They're not quite ogres, but they're close enough. Drizelda is then flung off to the horizon with them, and then we get to hear the village elder announce that the harvest festival begins. And the village elder, the reason I bring this up is because the village elder is voiced by Wayne Knight, best known as Newman from Seinfeld, or Nedry from Jurassic Park, or Al from Al's Toy Barn and Toy Story 2. Basically, he's a very familiar actor. You know him if you hear his voice.
Oh yeah,
I already hear him.
Very familiar.
I'm just like, yeah.
And also, then one of the elves turns out, she questions Athena why she should stay in the kingdom, and she wonders if she'll turn out just as evil as Drizelda. But Athena tries to dissuade her otherwise because it's revealed she saved the mouse, who turns out, of course, to be Jerry, from one of Drizelda's spells. And it's here where the slapstick begins. Tom sticks his tongue out at Jerry, and Jerry snaps it back like a window pane or whatever. And we then get the opening credits, which begin with like the classic Tom and Jerry logo, and then it cuts to a series of medieval-style settings in that, which has this big dramatic music with the zoom-ins in that, and it cuts again from like the classic, era Tom and Jerry logo to that. It pretty much is a lot of tonal whiplash kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like that one. Yeah, it's like cutting from like the Angry Mob song in My Little Pony Gen 5 movie, and just ultimately going to like a modern day perfume ad starring Pip.
Exactly. It's really, like I say, it is jarring just to see, like, we're going to see classic cartoon slapstick, and oh no, we're going to see this, medieval, fantasy movie. And more on my thoughts on that in a little bit. But we then cut to many years later as Athena runs a home for abandoned, injured animals, and adult Athena, she has a nice design as well. There's something about the way she's drawn that is pretty appealing, It's not like a direct copy of Drizelda. It takes aspects of her while also kind of expanding on them. Athena's voice act... sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no. I just thinking it was a stupid joke.
No, go ahead, tell it. It's all good.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
All right, okay. About that. All right. So Athena's voice actress is, believe it or not, the same woman who played, or at least did the stunt work for, Samara in the movie The Ring, which when I looked that up, I was shocked.
Dang.
Like, okay, I did not expect like a woman who played one of these scariest horror movie, villains out there to also do a
Korean horror girl for that matter.
No. This is the American remake. She was in the remake version, not the Korean version.
Oh yeah, it's the original remake.
Yeah. But also the fact that it actually happened it's something else. But Athena then goes into the village to get some donations in the shelter, and she leaves Tom and Jerry in charge. Instead of Spike the dog, they're accompanied by a warthog that honestly looks a little too similar to Pumbaa for my liking, It's like they literally said, take this character, but make it blue. And that's all the character design they did. It's like, let's take Pumbaa, paint him blue. That's it. We have a new character.
He has a different character for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, she also has a little crow named Max, who is a much nicer crow than Diablo from Sleeping Beauty, at least.
Yeah.
The warthog continuously wants to get out as Tom and Jerry try to keep it inside, but again, this only causes it to rampage even more so. Eventually, the three of them are bursted out of the door and they head towards the village. Athena, she then heads into town. Some of the elves mock her, others, while the shopkeeper pretty much help her out. It is interesting how they do the plot line of, with the distrust in that because of her, heritage and whatnot, with her aunt being being, of course, Drizelda and that, someone who caused so much trouble. They're suspicious of her as well. It's a decent moral, but the way they especially accomplish it later on, it does not really work, and I'll get more to that in a little while. It turns out that some of her animals ended up ruining the festival the previous year. A donkey ends up running haywire and nearly knocks down the maypole before Athena calms it down. And the female elf with the hat, she from earlier, she's distrustful of Athena because of, again, her connection to Drizelda. And just as, the village seems to be getting, basically accustomed to her ways, the warthog runs into the village with Tom and Jerry riding the desk that they tied to its tail, and they're flung off. They land on the female elf. The warthog and the desk smash the maypole, which knocks it down and creates like a huge mess. We then get probably the moment that, at least for me, really just kind of is what held this movie back. Athena returns home and she's sad about not being accepted. She then breaks out into a song about wanting to find somewhere that she can belong, and I'm sorry, I remember none of this song. Not the lyrics, not the tune, nothing. It was like it was like television static. You might as well replace it with that because
honestly, yes.
It is so generic, it is just like, you honestly could fast forward it if not for the, Tom and Jerry slapstick in that, which, again, doesn't really fit with this movie in general. And now we're finally getting to the point where I can talk about that, is that this movie, it feels like somebody had a script for an original movie idea. They presented it to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers was like, yeah, this is a good script, but can you put Tom and Jerry in it? Because we need another Tom and Jerry movie. And the scriptwriter was like, okay, sure, we can put Tom and Jerry in. But it doesn't. But again, they're not really the focus of this movie. They're not really even like, they're the protagonist, that's, Athena. And really, their antics feel somehow shoehorned in. Like the slapstick is here, all like the Tom and Jerry as slapstick is here. But I don't know, it feels forced compared to, again, maybe their hearts weren't in it or something like that. But a lot of this, it just doesn't feel like they're trying. At least with this part. Later on, it gets a little bit better. But with this song, it feels like they're on autopilot with the stuff like this. There's a little nice touch where Tom gets his hand bit by a piranha, and it's a brief snippet of the iconic scream. That's cute. But aside from that, it really it doesn't make any impression. And between that and the generic song, it's like the Tom and Jerry 1993 movie all over again, where you had like clearly somebody trying to make a different movie and also having to make something with Tom and Jerry in it at the same time, and you can't really juggle both.
A lot of this movie felt like it was a bunch of executives designed by committeeing what they thought a streamlined version of a Disney film would be.
Exactly. This felt like it would be something from the Disney Renaissance, a song that the heroine would sing in that. That you are exactly right with that.
It felt most of this movie was kind of half-hearted at times. Like,
definitely.
They weren't even trying. It felt like a lot of things were forced after a while.
Sometimes, yes. But there is something that helps redeem this movie. We'll get to that later, but...
Yep, of course. We definitely will get to it. But yeah, after this, the song ends with Tom being chased by a crocodile, which causes the bridge that Athena was on to collapse and to fall into the mud. And then this movie fades to black, which I just realized, like, oh, okay, that's for the TV broadcast, so they could be like, insert commercial here, It's like, why would you do that? sorry. On some levels, I get it, but on other levels, it's like, okay, yeah, you just want to get this over as soon as possible. Which this movie, without credits, is about like 50 minutes, which is really, really, for something that sells on being a feature-length movie, you really kind of got to stretch that definition of feature length.
Yep.
But yeah, the movie then cuts to the woods where we get to see the trio of cats that work with Drizelda are headed into a cavern. The cats are cats again, and they're not ogre monsters. They're not really that funny, in my opinion. I get what they're trying to do. Kind of like, I guess, to make another comparison with Sleeping Beauty, they're kind of like Maleficent's goons, but they just don't work. Because there's something about them where, again, maybe because this whole movie is too short to actually give them a little more time to have comedic development in that, but it just feels, again, like, okay, we need 3 wisecracking henchmen. Okay, go.
Yeah. Except make them evil and not as charming as those gargoyles Disney did.
Yeah, that too. Yep, I would definitely prefer the gargoyles over them, even Hugo. But yeah, the cats then find themselves amongst a pile of riches and gold before they find a pearl that Drizelda wants. And this entire sequence, and maybe it was intentional because WB was working on it at the time, it definitely reminds me of Desolation of Smaug, with going into the dragon's lair, having to find a small white precious gem in that. It probably wasn't unintentional, but I definitely could see it happening. We then get a brief glimpse of our first dragoness of the movie as she basically chases the thieves out. The pearl falls out of the cat's satchel and it floats downstream. The movie then cuts to Athena and Jerry washing the animals, and a little bit of cute things how they do it in that. Jerry attempts to wake up Tom, but Tom attacks him, leading to more slapstick. And again, it still isn't working for me. It feels like it's like, we've seen this before, like there's nothing that this movie does that you can't just put an original short on and enjoy if you want to see Tom and Jerry content. I'm not saying this movie is bad. It's not a bad animated movie, but as a Tom and Jerry movie, it definitely is not what you would expect. And I haven't seen all of them, so I can't say, but I've heard that's pretty similar for a lot of it. But yeah,
And
after
for
some
the
more...
record, it took us 15 minutes to get to the first Tom and Jerry slapstick in a Tom and Jerry movie.
Exactly. You are exactly right there. And that is something that should be like minute 1, You should not have to wait and that's why, again, I reiterate the idea that this movie was intended as an original animated movie and they had to put Tom and Jerry in it to get it funded. But yeah, the two then notice the pearl on the lily pad. The movie then cuts back to Drizelda's lair, and the cats present the treasure, but Drizelda only wants the pearl. The cats don't have it, and Drizelda is furious. And it's here we find out that the pearl is actually a dragon's egg, which, okay, now you're stealing from the SpongeBob episode with Clamu the oyster. Let's throw peanuts at him and see how he likes it. I get what I deserve.
I get what I deserve.
I've not seen that, but okay.
Yeah, but then Drizelda does do something interesting. Well, not her do something. This something interesting happens. She turns the cats into cat-bat hybrids that actually look pretty cool. In all honesty, they are cool designs. They're better than the other cat designs, to be honest. And I will admit, whoever animated this or designed it, they had fun with those guys.
Indeed.
So yeah, Athena then basically tries to get Tom to sit on the egg while she finds out what egg it is, and this happens really fast. Like, she finds out what it is like right away, which you think they'd do like an entire montage, but they just kind of gloss over that.
I mean, she is pretty studious, so I don't completely put it past her to do something like that.
Yep. More slapstick with Jerry sticking Tom's tail in the fire, and the dragon's egg then starts to hatch, which leaves 2 little feet sticking around as it runs all over the place. Then the dragon hatches, and he imprints on Tom, thinking that he's its mother in like a classic cartoon scenario in that. The dragon, honestly, the baby dragon, his name is Puffy, by the way, named by Athena. It's actually kind of cute. They did a decent enough job, I feel, at
Yeah,
making
they knew what the focus was going to be. And
Yeah.
okay, also as for the imprinting thing for cartoons,
Yeah.
honestly, there's a bit of science behind that. As
Oh, go
some
ahead.
animals from the egg will actually imprint on the first thing they see. As
I did not know
such,
that.
yeah, as such, Puffy imprinting on Tom as he's the first thing he sees, not completely out of left field. Just saying.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow. But yeah, Athena then goes to the wizard to try and find out more about it. And we get to see the dragon from earlier, which turns out, of course, to be Puffy's mother, is trying to find her child. Her design is pretty decent. It's somewhat standard for, a medieval type dragon, but there are some elements I like, such as, her size being so huge. She causes earthquakes, when she walks. And some of the facial expressions on her, they did a decent job. The other dragoness in this movie, they had a lot more fun designing, and we'll get to her in a little while. But I have to admit that she, in particular, Puffy's mother, as we'll call her for like the Dragoness Scale ranking, she's an alright dragoness. She has her moments. If she had some more screen time, that would be nice. But that probably wasn't about to happen, regardless.
We do feel sorry for her a little later. We'll get to it when we do.
You definitely do, especially with what happens.
Yeah.
In the climax of the movie. You definitely do. But yeah, the next morning, Tom and Jerry basically have to watch over Puffy while Athena goes out to see the wizard. Now, the slapstick with Puffy and the other animals that Athena has with Tom and Jerry is somewhat better, as I feel like this point, it's a little more inventive. Like, they're actually trying to say, okay, they have a dragon with them. Now, what can we do with this? And what can we do with that? It's like, at this point, it's like now they can find different angles of which to take it rather than just doing the same bits that they did in like the 1940s and 50s.
Yeah.
But yeah, Puffy then ends up sneaking out and running towards the village with Tom and Jerry trying to stop them for causing too much havoc. And like I say, Puffy is really adorable, especially in this sequence. They try to eat the flower off the aforementioned female elf's hat, but ends up sneezing and setting it on fire, which, again, decent slapstick. Decent enough slapstick. Tom and Jerry try to put the fire out, but they fail until Jerry hits her over the head with a mallet repeatedly. And of course, Jerry, being the little bastard that he is, he puts the mallet in Tom's paws, and Tom gets beaten up. But yeah, like I say, even like
quick,
this.
I'm pretty darn sure Puffy is supposed to be this movie's stand-in for Tuffy.
I did not think about that.
Wait,
wow.
Repeat that one more time?
Huh.
The little gray mouse, Tuffy. I believe
I remember Tuffy.
Puffy the
yeah,
dragon.
I remember. Wow. I did not know that. If that was intentional, that was actually kind of smart. I'm going to be honest. That is actually pretty clever. Clever way of getting a classic character in there while not being a classic character. I give him credit.
What did they do with Tuffy?
That Puffy, the baby dragon, is supposed to be the baby mouse from Tom and Jerry. It's an analogy.
Oh, I see. All right, that makes sense.
It feels like that, and the voice is done similarly, so I'm calling it that while not having any confirmation of it.
Yeah. No, I definitely can see that. Wow, that is something that very, very good point there. But yeah, the wizard basically warns Athena that if the elves knew that she had a dragon, she would be banished. The wizard then tells her to return Puffy to the wild and that he can't protect her anymore. Athena then instead, she decides to have Puffy brought back to her house. Tom, as it turns out, is on the side of the wizard and wants to take Puffy back into the wild as well. But Jerry wants to, follow Athena's wishes to keep Puffy, which leads to them fighting yet again with more slapstick in that. Tom then brings Tuffy to the woods and tries to abandon them. And then the two get into another fight when Jerry frees Puffy. And again, the slapstick here, once more, it just feels half-baked. And, I don't want to be like a broken record in that, but, with the slapstick being such an integral part of the Tom and Jerry franchise, I feel like it's something that you have to keep commenting on because it's the main reason why they exist, It really, without it, I mean, what do you have? You have like the 1993 movie. And the less said about that one, the better.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I will say though, them ultimately protecting Puffy from from the little cat bats and whatnot.
Oh, that's
it's
great.
Definitely
That
a
is
nice
a good
sentiment.
sequence. That is a good sequence. And the cat bats then basically tease Tom that they were Auntie's favorites, and they try to take Puffy away. And I like to see this part. I like that Tom and Jerry team up to fight the Drizelda's hench cats with the usual slapstick in that. But the fact that we actually get to see them working together. That, again, is another way that they took something and they give it a little enough tweak to where it's interesting. It's like, oh, I haven't seen that before. That's pretty fun. You know?
Yep.
I feel like if they did more stuff like that and less like trying to repeat the classics, this movie would have been a lot better off for it, at least as a Tom and Jerry movie. But then Puffy is revealed to be able to fly and breathe fire as it gets away from the cat bats. Jerry then tricks the trio into going into some brambles while him, Tom, and Puffy hop onto a cart heading back into town. And it's here where we get the moment that really, I think, shows that this movie had to cut some costs somewhere. The three cats talk to each other, but the entire shot for like 30 seconds is literally a still frame of the brambles. Nothing moves. It is literally like a screenshot of it, and they hold on that for so long while the three cats have a conversation. You can't see them. You can't even see like the clouds move overhead and that. It really shows like you really cut corners with that scene alone, you know. Just keeping it on a still
the
shot.
Hanna-Barbera staple.
Yeah.
So it's not always that bad when it comes to
it's not. This is light years animated better than some of their stuff from the 70s and that. Those things are woof. I mean, they definitely do not have some good ones, and we'll be talking about a Hanna-Barbera property soon on this podcast, so you'll hear more about our thoughts for that one. But getting back to this movie, Athena then returns home with Puffy's cage, only to find that him, Tom, and Jerry aren't there. She then heads to the festival where the wizard is there, and I guess the wizard is being like Gandalf in this scenario. He's setting up fireworks like Gandalf did in the Shire. Unfortunately, we do not get to see a giant dragon firework, but we do get a giant dragoness, so pretty good trade-off right there. She asks Tom and Jerry where are to the wizard, but he doesn't know. He then warns her about what happened with Puffy and that. We then get to see a bolt of lightning as Drizelda appears within a statue, taunting the wizard before becoming herself. And now this is the part where I literally was floored. I had to pause the movie, like close my jaw, rewind it, and rewatch it to make sure I wasn't dreaming this. She basically flaunts her body into. Drizelda has a very like hourglass body figure. She flaunts into the camera, and she actually pulls down like the top of her dress and exposes her breasts for a couple of frames. I had to stop and stare at my screen for a second before rewinding it and making sure that actually happened in the movie. In a Tom and Jerry kids movie, a direct-to-video movie, they got away with that.
That is a 100% temptress right there.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that happened in another kids movie. Don Quixote.
Oh, yeah.
Boy.
Oh, God. I know that movie. That movie, of course, I'm from Spain. That movie came out in like 2005 over here. It was marketed everywhere, and it was an attempt to do the Shrek formula with Don Quixote, but there's only one problem. If you've read Don Quixote, it's already a spoof. You're parodying something that's already a parody. How can you do like a double spoof of something?
Exactly.
Yeah. But getting back to this one, Drizelda then tries to convince Athena to tell her where the baby dragon is, while also warning her that Puffy's mother is looking. She then uses her magic to make a snake out of smoke, but the wizard wards it off with his magic. And I have to admit, the smoke snake spell, I guess, alliteration right there. But I think that is probably one of the better animated parts of the movie. It looks decent enough. If it's done with CG, I cannot tell. It looks pretty good. And it seems like they put a lot of care into that and something else, which we will get to in a little bit. But the snake steals Puffy away. She gives it to Drizelda. She then uses a potion to bring the cat to sleep, and she gets away with the help of her cat bats. The village then basically decides to kick Athena out, which, of course, they would. And she decides basically she doesn't care, and she's going to save Puffy in that. Now we get to the part of the movie that definitely is what reminded me of Bartok the Magnificent. Drizelda arrives back to her lair and chains up Puffy and then tells her what she needs. She does this in a song where she tells him that she needs his heat in order to powder up her amulet, which, okay, let's do a comparison of women who turn to dragonesses with songs. I feel like Real Ludmilla is a little better, not just as a song, but because Ludmilla actually transforms during the entire song. But I Need Some Heat still is a pretty good jazz number, and we do get some pretty good animation in the sequence. You can tell that it was this part and basically this entire last third of the movie where the animation really kicks into gear about it being into actually caring about their craft. But it is, like I say, a nice little jazz number. The cat trio accompany her, and they've been transformed back into actual cats off screen. She also flaunts her body throughout the song, much like Ludmilla. After the song ends, or seemingly ends, Drizelda tries to get Puffy to breathe fire to no avail. I like her final plan is to grind up pepper to make the dragon breathe fire, which again, cute little cartoon gag. After Puffy does it, she basically absorbs the flame in the amulet. She finally finishes the song and transforms into a complete dragoness with the last few lines. The way that they actually have her slowly change from her normal form into a dragoness one is good. It's done with a kind of semi-morph effect, which, again, it's not like the slower Ludmilla-esque transformation, but for this, it still works out pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like, the fact that she not only obtains it, but what she does to the dragon is just woof.
Yeah, we will get to that shortly. There's another nice touch with the volcano she lives in erupts now that she's a dragoness and that. And of course, Drizelda is able to speak in her dragoness form, which always a big plus in my book. That's always like, you have someone turn into a dragon and they can speak, that gives you a few extra points on my score. But Athena, Tom, and Jerry, they then ride towards Drizelda's lair, and it's here we finally get a really good look at Puffy's mother. And I like that she has a sleek design compared to Drizelda's more, shall we say, rotund form, which we will get to when we see more of her, as well as her more feral appearance compared to the more anthropomorphic look that Drizelda has. But Puffy's mother then sets the hay cart and nearly Tom on fire, where they have to jump onto the horse for safety. She then basically scares away the horse before Athena tells her about Drizelda taking her child. We then get to the back to the elf village where the wizard is planning on leaving but he tells them basically about why they didn't trust Athena. We then get to see Drizelda arrive in the village, and it's here where we get to see her dragoness form, which really is a very unique one, especially, again, for a direct-to-video movie like this. It had a lot of cost-cutting techniques and, pretty mediocre parts in the early parts. I feel like this is where all of the budget, or at least the care, went to. I love the little touches. I love the fact that the scales are the same color as her robe, and one little detail that is something that they did not have to do. And I am so shocked they did this, and it's like something where that's where they put the care into. She has two differently colored horns. She has one black one and one white one because of the white stripe in her black hair. The fact that somebody actually sat down and actually took the time to implement that part of her design into her dragoness form, I got to give him points for that too, Her voice has a slight echo in her dragoness form, which, of course, it does. That's pretty much typical with it. Drizelda then comes bearing a gift, which turns out Puffy has been turned into stone. Drizelda then basically threatens to destroy the entire village, and I do like this little gag that is pretty funny. The wizard tries to stop her with a big Gandalf-esque, "You shall not pass" moment, but she just flicks his staff away like an annoyance. And we then get some slapstick with him as well. She sets him on fire, crushes him into like a flattened form, and then, of course, she threatens to eat him. And the fact that they actually give slapstick to a character like the wizard, I give them credit for that too. The fact that at this moment, it's like it feels like now they're trying to incorporate the Tom and Jerry aspect with the medieval fantasy aspect. Whereas before, it felt like two different movies. I feel like for the climax, they're starting to mix it together a little bit better. If they had this tone throughout the rest of the movie, it probably would have been way better. But as it is, I have to admit that the climax is the best part of the movie.
Hell yeah. It really ramps up the stakes, especially with what happens to the two good quote unquote dragons in the movie.
Yeah.
Which
we get to see right now.
Never a
Puffy's
good
mother arrives with Athena, Tom, and Jerry riding on her back. She then tackles Drizelda to the ground, and out of 40 episodes of Fiery Discourse, the only podcast on the internet dedicated to dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies, this is the first ever episode with two dragonesses actually fighting each other. If we don't count like Jurassic Park, which is I guess you could count that, but this is the first time I think we actually get to see a dragoness on dragoness fight. And it's a pretty good one. It mostly consists of grappling, but you do get the idea how basically the two of them fight with each other on that. Puffy's mother, of course, is extremely upset after she finds out that her, child is now a statue, and Drizelda goes so far as to basically taunt her, which, again, really
not a
adds
good
to the
idea.
battle. Yeah. And we then, even with this sequence, with them grappling and basically wrestling on top of each other, we get some pretty good slapstick. Drizelda squishes Jerry into an accordion. Tom laughs before Puffy's mother does the exact same, which again, that's a creative way of doing slapstick and incorporating it into the movie. It's not like before where you have like a big musical number and you have slapstick, thrown in there. This feels more natural and intricate to the story in that. Puffy's mother then basically breathes fire at Drizelda, which is of course exactly what Drizelda wanted, as she gets even more powerful, and she turns Puffy's mother into stone. And she plans on basically attacking the village, but Athena tries to stand up to her. She hits Drizelda with the wizard staff, and we get to see all of Athena's animals. It actually has a payoff as they attack Drizelda. Tom and Jerry are launched into the air. They actually rip the amulet off of her, and she swoops down to try to attack them. Which, again, it's a way that actually got Tom and Jerry in the climax, and it had them do something. Which, again, I have to appreciate that they actually had them do something. They're not just standing on the sideline, like, not to keep comparing it, but it's not like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory one where they're pretty much just there. They don't do anything really of note. They're just there. But yeah.
You can tell, though, that they were really stretching for that 50-minute runtime because there's when they get the necklace, there's a segment that goes on way too long of Tom and Jerry falling. It goes on for like a solid minute.
Oh yes. That is something that definitely it definitely does feel like padding in a way. And again, for a 50-minute movie, there are ways that you probably could have filled that time, like the part with the brambles. There's ways that you could have filled that time while actually have it be about something instead of just, we got to get to the 50-minute mark so we can all go out for margaritas and that, But it turns out that Drizelda misses them. They land safely in a tent, and Athena uses a mallet to smash the amulet once and for all. And the amulet ends up turning Drizelda into stone, and it brings Puffy and Puffy's mother back to life, yeah. But Puffy and their mother are reunited in a pretty cute little sequence, and they fly off back to their home with the animation on that being surprisingly fluid compared to some of the rest of the movie. We then get to see Athena and her animals being welcomed into the village by everyone, including the female elf with the hat. So apparently now she finally got everything she wanted. The movie ends with Athena reprising her song, which again, to me, just felt like television static. And Tom puts his hand on the crocodile and it chases him off to the sunset. And yeah, that's it. And we do actually get an after credits movie. That's another thing this episode has in common with the last one. We actually get an after credits sequence. A bird lands on the statue of Drizelda, but she basically wards it off by breathing smoke from her nostrils. so she's still alive. I guess it's like at the ending of Danger Diabolic, when Diabolic is encased in a gold statue, but he's still somehow able to see and breathe in that.
Dang.
But yeah, after this, they would make several more Tom and Jerry direct-to-video movies, and the most recent one came out last year. Apparently, it's a Tom and Jerry in Snowman's Land. It came out December 2022. They actually did one before that, Tom and Jerry Cowboys or something, that also came out 2022. And of course, they had the Tom and Jerry live-action hybrid movie that was a thing. It existed. It existed. It was a movie.
It was a movie.
It opened with 3 pigeons singing "Can I Kick It?" So
yes, that was honestly
that's where
the
we begin.
lower point of the movie for me personally. But
I heard when it was Tom and Jerry, it was actually good. Other than that,
it's just generic.
It's just generic.
But yeah, it's going to be like Scooby-Doo, I think, with these Tom and Jerry direct-to-video movies, because as long as the franchise is still profitable, as long as they can keep on selling these copies of DVDs in stores and putting them on streaming services and playing them on TV to get like the syndication rights, they are going to keep making these movies for a very long time.
Indeed.
But unlike the direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies, which we will get to eventually on this podcast, the Tom and Jerry movies, it definitely is all over the place quality-wise. Like, you can have something like, it definitely, it fluctuates, basically. And I think what it is because Tom and Jerry are characters that they try to stick them in all kinds of different scenarios. Like in this one, it's in the Middle Ages. And another one, they're pirates. And another one, they're in the Old West. And it really just feels like they have no idea what to do with them.
They were just shoehorned into a lot of movies.
Yeah, they are grasping at straws at this point, I think, to try and make these characters profitable. And Granted, you understand why they're trying to do this, to keep the characters relevant, because otherwise they'd probably fade out of relevancy, which is what happened to guys like Woody Woodpecker and that. But in another way, it just feels, I don't know, a little hollow in a way. I'm not saying these movies are bad, far from it. This was an enjoyable movie. I liked it. It was fun. It had a lot of good moments. Drizelda herself was great. But as a whole, this movie, it feels very corporate. It feels very much like, oh, we got to get our Tom and Jerry movie quota out for this year for the financial quarter. Go, go, go. Even though, it does have good moments. And again, it is a good movie in its own right. The intentions behind it are just a little bit cynical for me. Maybe that's just how I read it, but that's how I get it. But yeah, anyway, we're going to get to the question of the week this week, which is Tom and Jerry memories or similar cartoon memories. Now, as a kid, I never really liked Tom and Jerry. They never appealed to me. I watched some of the older ones, like on Cartoon Network and that, but I don't know. I feel like as a whole, their cartoons, and granted, they're classic. Don't get me wrong. They really, really are funny when they're funny, but I feel like the problem with them is that they were very limited in what they could do sometimes. Compared to, like, for example, again, I grew up with, like, the Disney shorts and, like, Fleischer and that on, like, VHS and that. So Tom and Jerry were, let's say this way, Tom and Jerry, they did not produce anything on the same level as, like, Popeye meets Sinbad the Sailor, unfortunately. And I just feel like, again, I like their cartoons. They're really funny. And again, I remember watching them and laughing along to them, but I never really was a fan of them. Whereas I was like a fan of like Disney or like Popeye or like, the old, weird old Fleischer shorts like Bimbo's Initiation and that, and again, maybe it's just me. They just felt a little too sedate compared to what the later ones were, of course. And I'm not saying, again, that they're unlikable. I really enjoyed them a lot. It's just that, I guess, for me, I don't have bad memories of them, and I remember enjoying them, and I have good memories, but they didn't really stick out. It felt like, from one episode to another, it didn't really matter in a way, which, again, that's my opinion, but that's kind of how I looked at it. So, Angron, what would you have to say?
Okay. Like, Hanna-Barbera as a whole was one of those things I honestly accepted. I didn't 100% fanboy over them. I didn't absolutely hate them for that matter, but I can't say with confidence that I ever really, liked them.
Yeah.
They had their fun moments. There were some moments I absolutely loved.
Oh no, definitely.
Some of the Scooby-Doo movies were amazing. Some of them had heart put into them.
Yeah.
Hell, there were
Some
a few
of the
Tom and
classic
Jerry
shows
movies.
like Flintstones and Jetsons, they were good too.
Yeah, Wally Gator, all that stuff. Hell,
Yeah.
Adult Swim for a time took inspiration from Hanna-Barbera.
Exactly.
And
exactly
fun fact,
right.
freaking Charlotte's Web was made by Hanna-Barbera.
A great movie, yeah. But the thing is, that actually reminds me about Hanna-Barbera. I don't mean to interrupt, but it feels like with Hanna-Barbera, and again, I guess we'll get to that more when we do the actual episode on them, but I feel like what was Hanna-Barbera's downfall, they were definitely a studio that was quantity over quality. It's like when you spend pretty much the entire 70s basically making Scooby-Doo knockoffs to increasingly diminished returns, you got to slow down production,
Indeed.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And Tom and Jerry in particular is a good time. I'll put it that way. It's not exactly on the level of something like, say, Cartoon Network, which, let's be fair, a lot of Hanna-Barbera properties were mostly on Cartoon.
From.
Yeah, like
Dexter's Lab was their first original one, and you can definitely see a lot of Hanna-Barbera influence in that as well.
Yeah, and Powerpuff Girls too.
Powerpuff Girls was made by Hanna-Barbera, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
The first 2 seasons. Last thing I believe, if memory serves, that was the last thing they ever did. So if they went out on top. They went out with they went out on a really high note. So gotta applaud them for that. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. And again, with Cartoon Network, for me as a kid, it was the same exact thing. Cartoon Network over here, they played a mixture of the Hanna-Barbera stuff and the Cartoon Network originals. And I liked Flintstones, I liked Dick Dastardly, I liked Jetsons, I liked Scooby-Doo. Scooby was classic. But aside from those ones, I mostly preferred and Pink Panther, but that's not Hanna-Barbera. But I mostly preferred the Cartoon Network original stuff. Like Dexter, like Powerpuff Girls, like Ed, Nettie, stuff
Cartoon
like that,
Network
like Courage.
Cartoon Network around that time was prime. Let's be fair.
They had a lot more freedom, I felt. Whereas in Hanna-Barbera in the 1970s and 80s, they were just grasping at straws and floundering.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the Hanna-Barbera around the early 60s and whatnot wasn't exactly, prime, but it wasn't terrible.
Well, that gave us Flintstones and Jetsons, which are probably two of their best shows, of course.
Yeah. As for a strong Tom and Jerry moments, I will honestly have to say that out of all of the movies, shows, and whatnot that they ultimately did that I can ultimately remember strongly, I would honestly have to turn to either Tom and Jerry Raceway or Tom and Jerry Shiver Me Whiskers as the chief, movie that ultimately sticks with me to this day. Because, it's pretty bare bones, but honestly, it's the movie I remember watching a lot when I was young, and it stuck with me. And again, we had a box set of the classic cartoons of Tom and Jerry and whatnot, like the stuff from the 40s and whatnot. I also, we still have that to this day up in New York. We have the little picture thing with Jerry drawing himself off with Tom's tail, which, good times. But yeah, that is ultimately what I remember the most about it.
All right, that's great. Stryker, what would you have to say?
I actually did grow up with Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Actually, I mainly remember watching Scooby-Doo. Actually,
nice.
And I remember being scared of a zombie island, but later admiring the series, admiring the movie, obviously, and like later even getting to watch other Hanna-Barbera shows, but like not just Scooby-Doo. I remember watching Powerpuff Girls when I was a kid.
Oh hell yeah!
Because like it was a show my sister would enjoy watching because it's about girls, so it's obviously a girl show.
Had the same thing. Yep. Yep. Same thing. Yep.
I actually didn't care. Actually didn't care because like it was a superhero show, so like because it was obviously also a show for boys, so I made the excuse to watch it with her. But yeah, like I remember also watching shows like I barely remember watching the Jetsons, but I later watched the Flintstones as well. And I remember watching some videos online, finding out that originally the Flintstones was supposed to be for adults.
Oh, it was. It was a. Well, again, we'll talk more about that when we do an episode on them, which is going to be down the line. But yeah, Flintstones was directly based on the old sitcom The Honeymooners, to the extent where they actually got writers from The Honeymooners, and Jackie Gleason, who played, of course, Ralph Cramden. He threatened to sue Hanna-Barbera because he felt it was so close to The Honeymooners that he had a pretty good case for a lawsuit. He would have probably won, too, but the reason he dropped it is because his agent told him that killing off such a popular show like Flintstones would have been bad for his image. But, yeah, no, they definitely took inspiration from it, at least at first. They kind of got their own identity later on, but the early episodes definitely were, you could adapt them to the Cramdens and nothing would change that.
Not only that, but like I remember,
certainly not the worst thing Warner Bros. Would go, what Flintstones would go through.
No,
exactly.
Oh yeah.
No.
Not only that, but I also remember back in like when around the time they had premiered, there were some sponsored advertisements with them where they advertised cigarettes.
Yeah, because it was an adult show. People, back then, TV shows did that. Cigarettes were banned on TV.
They also had
their.
Not to mention, they also had their own brand of slant eyes, if you will, which that didn't age well.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they also did a Cocoa Pebbles commercial that sort of both leaned into the Karate Kid phase and also like sort of did that thing again. Not really, but
Yep, I can see it. So yeah, Math, what would you have to say? Or any of your memories?
I grew up with Tom and Jerry. That was a lot of my childhood, and I love a lot of what they did.
Yeah.
I remember Tom and Jerry Kids because the 90s had everything be a kid's version of their show.
How was it?
Say again?
Sorry, go ahead, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, Tom and Jerry Kids was a fun thing for what it was. Obviously, the classic cartoons are great. I still quote a lot of the gags to this day.
Nice.
I don't know why this one sticks with me so much. I will always laugh at the "Don't you believe it?"
Yeah, that's a classic. That is a classic. Oh, definitely.
Absolutely.
I even find some good in the '93 Tom and Jerry movie.
Oh yeah.
Mostly dealing with Tony J because that's cheating.
Yeah.
If you have Tony J, you're cheating. You've automatically got something good going.
Yeah.
I mean,
speaking
that
of
movie did give us the "we've got to have money" meme.
Yeah,
so nothing else to give
Wario's official tagline to this day.
Yeah, it did give us that.
Yeah. Speaking of Hanna-Barbera, honestly, Yeah, I've absolutely like I said, I've accepted Hanna-Barbera, but I've also sort of admired Hanna-Barbera a little bit. Like the styles, the overall like impact that it's had on media.
Yeah.
Like to this day, there are no doubt a lot of things that are referenced from Hanna-Barbera. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if they still draw inspiration from that to this day for the most part.
I wouldn't
think,
either. I
anyways.
wouldn't either. But yeah,
Yeah, and
I always
adults.
thought. Sorry. So go ahead.
And I mean, again, Adult Swim used to draw inspiration from that. It's why we got stuff like the Venture Bros and Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, for crying out loud.
Exactly right. And also that I always felt like what Hanna-Barbera lacked in animation, they made up for in character design.
They did, as well as like character in general.
Exactly. As I always felt like, what they lacked for in technicality, they made up for with how, iconic their characters were, But yeah.
Especially like with some of my favorite characters like from Scooby-Doo.
Exactly. So, Jordan, what would you have to say? Or any of your favorite memories with the characters?
I grew up with the classic Looney Tunes and Hannibal cartoons. Like when I see how the new Tom and Jerry, like this one, is a little more different, I can see why they didn't add so much excuse me, comedy to it. Like if Tom would have dropped an anvil on Jerry, it would have backfired and dropped on him instead of the other way around. But I grew up with the violent cartoons a little bit, like the Looney Tunes style. But I like how we get up and all these dragons involved. But I grew up with the classic violent cartoons. This time of age, there's not a lot of violent cartoons, which I can see why, because people are trying to teach their kids like, oh, you can't literally say or do these things to nowadays. Back then, you can get away with it. It's funny to watch. But
yeah, exactly.
I do remember an episode of Tom and Jerry as where Tom is trying to get a pretty kitty girl to go on a date with him, but she is guarded by this bulldog, and he sings this catchy tune. I can't remember what it was, but he has this guitar he's playing.
Is you is or is you ain't my baby?
That one, yes.
Nice.
And I'm just like, oh my god, this whole classic Tom is being chased by this dog who's chained up. And he's like,
yeah,
you can't hit me because I'm safe and you're not.
Man, I think of that moment and think of that one Looney Tunes where there's this one big bulldog and there's this cute little kitten that he looks after that he has a thing, which would probably more or less either partially be an inspiration or be a very interesting coincidence that later we would get something like Pixie and Brutus, which is pretty much the same thing, more or less.
Yeah. But that's what I think. I kind of wish that nowadays that cartoons are just now disappearing. Like Cartoon Network is gone. We all, whoever grew up in the 80s or 90s knows like all these awesome characters. Tom and Jerry are still a thing.
I mean, Cartoon Network's still there, more or less.
In a way, it's still there, but they're just like making cartoons just not what it used to be. They're making it like super, super friendly, and I'm like, where's the comedy? Where's the part of you making a hole and someone just falls right through it, or you see a character just like, oh wait, I'm being a jackass.
Where's my Jamaican fucking Grim Reaper, damn
it? Exactly. So it's just like nowadays that cartoons are just not what they used to be. It's just like sad and pathetic. Like we had 3 different generations of Looney Tunes. It went from okay, oh my god, you're funny, to another point like, what is this garbage for adults? Then you let little kids see. I'm like, what are you people thinking? Kids are gonna turn on TV and they're gonna see some jokes and they're not be like, Mom, what's this joke mean? They know what it means. I'm like, where's the point in watching cartoons? You can just pull up on a DVD of an old classic episode of whatever and just remember the good old days. Like Woody Woodpecker. Holy crap, that little guy can pull off some stunts, like crazy pranks or whatever, and he survives.
Yeah.
Cartoons are just like, oh,
Yeah.
now let's just make it more friendly. I'm like, I'm done watching cartoons. You guys are not even bringing the good stuff anymore.
I can see
But-
it. Yeah, I can definitely. Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. At least with a lot of that. Yeah. So, LuckyEevee, what would you have to say?
I used to watch Tom and Jerry when it was, looping on Boomerang.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
I
Boomerang.
remember Boomerang.
Yeah.
I watched a lot
Yeah,
of
they had
classic
that here,
cartoons
too.
on there.
I like how someone made a little edit with like the whole Pikmin wind up toys and
Oh,
did
that was
like a
hilarious.
Oh
Yeah,
They
that
my
was
actually
god.
referenced
awesome.
those bumpers with the Pikmin wind-up toys. That was
Yeah.
hilarious. Yeah, whenever they do stuff like that, that's cute.
Yeah.
But yep. And now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale. And this week we actually technically have 2 Dragonesses to rank instead of 1, so that's going to be very interesting. Both Puffy's mother and Drizelda. As for Puffy's, okay, I'll start with Puffy's mother. Her, I'm gonna give a. I've been giving a lot of them lately, but she's gonna get a 7 out of 10. And the reason I'm doing that is because she has a good design. She has a good, sleek, dragoness type design. That I like what they did with the facial expressions. I like what they did with the with some of the aspects of her and that. But I just feel like she could have had a little bit more screen time. But the fact that we actually do get to see her so enraged as she engages in a fight with another dragoness is something really cool. And for being part of the first ever all-out dragoness fight on the podcast, I definitely have to give her a lot of points for that. Now, as for Drizelda, she's getting a high score. I'm giving her, I might give her actually, I'm not sure if she gets a 10 out of 10. If she had just, I don't know, if the transformation was a little bit longer, but again, that's just me quibbling, being personable. I think I really might end up going with a 9 out of 10 because she is clearly the best part of this movie. She is clearly, what the animes put the most amount of care and detail into. The fact that they did stuff like actually remember that, she has multicolored hair, so give her multicolored horns is genius. She really is just so powerful and haughty in her dragoness form, and it really does work out. I mean, she really is perfection. The only reason I'm just it's so hard. I am so on the fence between just giving her a perfect score and being done with it. Because, again, she's a lot like Ludmilla, and Ludmilla got a perfect score. But I don't know. There's just, maybe it's just me personally, with the dragoness or the actual transformation. If you actually got to see a little more of it rather than it just happening at the end of the song. But that is such a minor nitpick detail that I really shouldn't have let it affect my score. In fact, I'm going to go back. I'm going to change my score. Drizelda gets a 10. Because, again, she's like Ludmilla, and Ludmilla was the best. So, therefore, someone who is intentionally or unintentionally based on Ludmilla will also get that score. Angron?
Yeah.
Sorry about that roundabout way of doing things.
Oh, good. I think I might go a little less and give her an 8 or 9 out of 10. I'm leaning towards 8, but I might stick with 9. Mainly because, as a villain, she's very effective. Like, she, for the most part, nearly gets what she wants. She ultimately does a good job of it. Like, I mean, incompetent minions aside, she ultimately has stuff, like, for the most part, planned out. She's not exactly sane, but honestly, Ludmilla wasn't sane either for the most part. They were both calculating, but they both had a sort of succubus side, if you will, to them that ultimately made them, them. And I will admit here, Drizelda is a lot more risque for the most part compared to Ludmilla. She's not 100% perfect. There's a lot of things holding her back, but the touches that she gets as both a dragon and as a villain definitely give her that. As for the mama dragon, I'm gonna give her an 8 out of 10 because even though she's not even though she doesn't have too much going on, the fact that she actually goes to quite the length to try and get back her kid and help the others stop a common enemy, as it were, definitely proves that she ultimately gives more than she ultimately shows. That and I ultimately feel a little sorry for her that she and her kid ultimately got the stone treatment from in this movie, which, ouch, but dang, did it really make it effective. So yeah, for Drizelda, 9 out of 10, Mama Dragon, 8 out of 10.
All right, all good reasons. Stryker?
I'm actually gonna give Drizelda an 8 out of 10 because I really liked her personality, to be honest.
Nice.
And of course, the Mama Dragon gets a slightly lower 7 out of 10, just because like I feel she could have had more screen time, more dedicated to her character, obviously.
No, I get you. I get you. I kind of felt like the exact same way. That I feel like there's ways you could have incorporated her into the story just a little bit more. But as it stands, she's still a pretty good one. Math?
Puppy's mom gets a 7. Like her design, the personality that you get from her is actually pretty impressive, considering that she is just feral dragon. The issue largely comes down to the fact that she had 3 minutes of screen time.
For the
They
most
just
part.
don't do anything with her. They have her as a background, like just a piece of background, and then when she actually does start doing something, up statue.
I can see that. And Drizelda?
And then Drizelda is an 8. I did like the dragon design. I wasn't too on board with the elf design. It wasn't bad, just kind of whatever, generic more than anything else.
Sorry.
The personality I liked that she did remind me a bit of Madame Mim in just how chaotic and wild she was.
Oh,
My
right.
main issue personality wise is that she was quite literally the writer's not even disguised fetish.
Not
Yes.
even.
The author's barely disguised fetish.
Nice.
That is her entire personality. She is just fetish fuel. I'm sorry. It's funny for the first few minutes, but it just give her something else. When she goes full dragon and she is being domineering, that was a nice change from her just being, oh hey, look, sex appeal.
Yeah.
True.
Yes. Oh, I definitely can see that. Oh, wow.
Indeed.
So, Jordan, what would you have to say?
I'm giving the baby puff 10 because it's so flipping cute. Like, you want a plushie of this cute little thing. Its mother's 7, and I agree that the villain should have a better, longer dragon transformation instead of just the end. I also give her a 7.
All right, it's all good. And LuckyEevee, what would you have to say?
Looking at both of them, I give them like both the same score of like 8 out of 10.
Nice. All
That's
right.
interesting.
So yeah, this week we actually got to rank 2 dragonesses, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions or you want to suggest what other Warner Brother properties Tom and Jerry should cross over with, you can feel free to email us at FieryDiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/FieryDiscourse. Next time, we'll be looking at the 1995 Bamboo Bears episode, Bamboo Bears. This is probably the most obscure thing we have ever covered on the podcast as to date. It'll be definitely interesting trying to just look up information about this thing and see what we can find about it and watch it. And yeah, until then, thank you guys so much for listening and take care.
Laters.
Bye bye.
Later.
Adios.
Peace out.